Section 4.5, writing a function rule. Underline function. We've been getting this wrong, so I want you to rewrite the word equation. Function is just another word for equation. There are going to be two types of variables here. We've got a dependent variable. You can underline dependent, underline y, and that is going to be your output. So your dependent variable is your y or your output. Your independent variable, this is your x or your input. On this next section, we're going to be taking this phrase and writing an equation. So x is more than half of n, is 8 more than half of n. Everyone underline is. That's your equal sign. So as we write this, we're going to write x equals or is 8 more than half of n. Also underline more than. I want you to write over in the margin less than as well. So when you come across this in a phrase, what you need to do is you need to switch the numbers around it. So instead of it reading 8 more than or plus half of n, you're going to write the half of n first and then write the 8. So there's going to be a change in what you in the order that comes around more than or less than. Off to the side, write change order. So when you would write this, you would write 1/2 n more than, meaning plus 8. As we move down to the second equation, 2.5 more than the quotient of h and 3 is x. So again, we've got our is and we've got our more than statement. So we know that more than, we've got to change the order of the numbers around it. So we're going to start out with h, the quotient of h and 3, quotient meaning division. So we're going to go h divided by 3 is more than, so we're going to have an addition sign, 2.5 is equals x. The thing to take away from this is more than or less than, greater than or less than, you're going to change your order of the numbers around the more than statement. For the rest of the notes, we're going to be working on word problems and setting up equations. So for this first word problem, the price P of pizza is $6.95 plus plus 95 cents for each additional topping. Write an equation and then determine how much a pizza would cost with 8 toppings. So as we look at this, we need to get our variables straight. So our first variable is P, and that's going to equal pizza. It's also going to be the dependent variable. Or output. Our next variable is going to be T, and I'm going to use a capital T so it doesn't get confused with a plus sign. That's going to equal our toppings. And that's going to be our independent. Oop. sorry. So that's going to be our independent variable. So when we go to write this, our P is our dependent variable. So we're going to start with P. And the initial cost of a pizza is $6.95. So that's our initial cost. And our change, okay, or our independent variable is 95 cents per topping. Okay, so we're going to add that 95 cents for each additional topping. So our equation looks like a pizza would cost $6.95 plus 95 cents for each additional topping. The problem then asks us to supplement 8 for our toppings. So our new equation is P equals $6.95 plus our 95 cents, and they want to know how much a pizza would cost if we had 8 toppings. When you plug that into your calculator, you're going to get that your pizza would cost $14.55. Good. Our next problem, I'm wearing a jetpack. Oop. I'm wearing a jetpack and I start at an altitude of 10 feet. I shoot up at a speed of 50 feet per second. We want to write an equation and then determine the altitude after 10 seconds. So for my two variables, I'm going to have A for altitude, and again that's my output, and T for time, and we're going to represent time by seconds in this problem. So as I write this, I've got my output or my dependent variable A, my altitude. I start at 10 feet, and then I add 50 feet per second. Okay, so 50 feet per second. So 50, and then my variable T. Again, capital T, not to be confused with our addition sign. And it wants to know after 10 seconds how high it would be. So as I rewrite this, I'm going to have my altitude equals 10 plus 50 after 10 seconds times 10. When you put that in your calculator, after 10 seconds, you will be 510 feet in the air. Next equation. Flip over your notes. The area A of a rectangle whose length is 5 more than its width. If the width is 7, then what is the area of the rectangle? So there's a couple things that we need to first figure out. Area of a rectangle is length times width. If we're trying to find what our length is, so length is, as we write the equation, we would go L equals 5 more than, and again, we talked about this in the beginning, more than its width. Okay, we've got to switch those two, the variable and the number that surrounds more than. So rather than 5 plus W, we're going to say it's W plus 5. And we want to know what the length would be if the width is 7 feet. So we're going to substitute 7 in for our width, and we're going to add 5. When you add 7 and 5, you get the length to be 12. But the question is asking what is the area of the rectangle? Well, when the length is 12, our width is 7. So we can go and substitute those two into the length and width to find the area. So my new equation is area equals length, which is 12, times W, which is 7. The area of this rectangle, after you multiply 12 times 7, is 84 feet squared. Whenever you're finding area of a shape, you're always going to have square feet. It's always going to be feet squared. So the next one's similar. The area of a triangle with a base that is 3 centimeters greater than 5 times its height. If the height is 3 centimeters, what's the area of a triangle? So let's set up our equation first. We want to know what the base is, and we've got that is there, so that is going to represent our equal sign. So we're going to go, what's the base when the area is greater than 5 times its height? Greater than, again, we want to take a look at switching the numbers that are next to it. So our equation is going to be B equals 5 times H plus those 3 centimeters. The next part says that if the height is 3 centimeters, what is the area of the triangle? So if our height is 3 centimeters, we have to find the base in order to find the area. So let's go ahead and substitute H for 3. So our new equation is B equals 5 times 3 plus 3. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 3, our base is 18. So we've got our base and we've got our height. In order to find the area of a triangle, the equation is area equals 1/2 base times height. So if we know our base and height, so our area would equal 1/2 times base, which is 18, times height, which is 3. If we go to our calculator and do that in our calculator, we're going to get the area of this triangle to be 27 centimeters squared. Again, we're trying to find the area of that triangle. Last equation. A team of divers is diving to find buried treasure off the coast of New Zealand. The team meets 10 yards below to talk about their strategy and to talk about what they want to buy first with the treasure. They then dive down at a pace of 2 yards per second. After 30 seconds, how deep will they be in the ocean? So the two variables that we're going to go with on this one is D, and that's going to stand for our depth. How far down are they? And T is going to stand for time. Depth is our output, time is our input. So when we write this equation, we're going to have D equals, now they're starting 10 yards below the surface. So we're going to start with a negative 10. So D equals negative 10, and then they're going to descend 2 yards per second. So they're again going down, so we're going to descend 2 yards, so negative 2 per second, or our time. And we know that they descend 2 yards per second, and then they're descending for 30 seconds. So our new equation is d equals -10 minus 2 times 30 for that 30 seconds. When we put this in our calculator, our new depth after 30 seconds is a -70 yards. Once you're finished with the notes, you can go on Schoology and find your homework and have that ready for class tomorrow.